When we talk about Peru, we imagine a place with landscapes ranging from the gigantic mountains of the Andes to the deep mysteries of the Amazon rainforest, right? But in the midst of all this scenery, there is a place that surpasses all expectations: Lake Titicaca. This lake, one of the continent's most fascinating wonders, holds secrets and traditions that will leave anyone speechless. Don't believe me? Then answer me this. Have you ever heard of a people older than the Incas who simply can't live on dry land? Or of a community where knitting is an exclusive tradition for men? What about sacrificial rituals and offerings, where blood is offered to the gods in ceremonies that defy all expectations? Well, today Bello Mundo takes you to explore all this and much more on this dive into the waters of Titicaca. Number 1. Lake Titicaca. Lake Titicaca is a true jewel of the Andes, dividing its waters between Peru and Bolivia. And be amazed, it is no less than 3,811 meters above sea level, giving it the title of the highest navigable lake on the planet. As if that weren't enough, this lake is also considered to have the largest volume of water in South America. And just to be clear, before anyone says that Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela is bigger and deeper, it's worth remembering that it has an outlet to the ocean and is therefore technically a bay, not a lake, right? One of the most interesting curiosities about Lake Titicaca is that it lies in both Peru and Bolivia, with most of its waters on the Peruvian side. The city of Puno, on the Peruvian side, is the main point for exploring the lake and has one of the richest cultures in the region. And the best thing is that you can take advantage of the trip and cross the border to the Bolivian side, immersing yourself a little more in the culture and customs on the other side of the shore. That said, it's no surprise that Titicaca is one of the most popular destinations for tourists. In addition to its impressive geography, this lake holds an aura of mystery that is hard to find anywhere else in the world. It is said that in the depths of the lake there is a submerged city called the City of Spirits or the City of Wanaku, where an ancient civilization rests that has mysteriously disappeared. Some even claim that on full moon nights, it is possible to see lights shining in the depths of the lake, as if the spirits of that city were still alive and guarding the secrets of Titicaca. Another legend tells of the guardian spirits of the lake, who protect its waters and the people who live there. According to this belief, those who respect the lake and treat its waters with reverence receive the protection of these spirits. However, those who try to exploit the lake for selfish ends or are disrespectful can face the wrath of the guardians. Strong winds and sudden storms are attributed to these spirits, a form of warning to remember that Titicaca is sacred and must be respected. Number 2. Cradle of Civilizations. And while we're on the subject of myths and legends, let's delve into Inca creation. And no, we're not talking about Machu Picchu. Although Machu Picchu is the most famous Inca city, it is said that the true origin of this civilization began on Lake Titicaca. According to legend, the sun god sent his children, Manco Capac and Mama Oclo, to find the perfect place where his people could flourish. And where did they decide to settle? On the iconic Isla del Sol. This island, located in Titicaca, was inhabited by these ancient peoples until the arrival of the Europeans in the 16th century. And of course, it's our next destination on this journey across South America's most sacred lake. Number 3. Isla del Sol. Isla del Sol is the largest island in Lake Titicaca, measuring approximately 21 square kilometers. Although it's on the Bolivian side, you can't talk about Titicaca without mentioning this legendary island. Its original name, Titicaca Island, originated from the name of the lake itself, which means stone puma in the local language. The island is part of a larger geological formation, the Copacabana Peninsula, which extends into Bolivia and creates an arm of land that surrounds part of the lake. Isla del Sol is separated from this peninsula by a narrow strait of just 1 kilometer of water, almost like a natural extension. For the Incas, Isla del Sol was more than just an island. It was the cradle of the Inca Empire. Legend has it that it was here that the god Huiracocha sent Manco Capac and Mama Oclo to found their people, turning the island into a sacred place. And you can't talk about the Aymara and Quechua peoples without mentioning their most emblematic rituals. First, the cult of Pachamama, or Mother Earth, which represents nature itself and fertility. This ritual, which is still celebrated, involves offerings of coca leaves, corn, and even llamas, asking for protection and good harvests. For the Andean peoples, Pachamama is the guardian of everything that lives. And then there's the famous Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun, the largest festival of the Inca Empire, which takes place on the winter solstice, around June 24th. This event pays homage to Inti, the sun god, and marks the beginning of the new agricultural year. During the festival, one of the central rituals involved the sacrifice of llamas, offering their blood to the sun to ensure good harvests and prosperity, while the shaman took the opportunity to make predictions for the year ahead. Today, Inti Raymi is celebrated in Cusco with a 3-day reenactment, without sacrifices, of course, and Pachamama is still revered in various Andean regions. But Titicaca holds even more secrets. And so our next stop is the fascinating Tequil Island. Number 4. Tequil Island. Tequil Island is a mountainous jewel of Lake Titicaca, located about 45 kilometers from Puno in southeastern Peru. During the Spanish colonization and until the 20th century, it was used as an isolated prison where inmates were kept away from society. Since the 70s, however, the inhabitants themselves have taken over the local administration, maintaining a simple lifestyle almost untouched by modernity. There are no cars, hotels, or constant electricity. At night, lighting is based on candles and lanterns, with a few solar panels recently installed for limited use. The locals are famous for their traditional clothing and handicraft skills, which have earned them international recognition. Their textile work is so impressive that it has been declared a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity by UNESCO. And here's a curious fact. While in many places knitting is a female task, there it is a male tradition. From an early age, boys learn to knit, while women dedicate themselves to spinning and weaving the yarn. Even with such a traditional lifestyle, the island receives around 40,000 tourists a year. With no hotels, visitors stay in the homes of the locals, who offer an authentic experience with simple meals and guided tours. The community is guided by the ancient Inca moral code, Amasua, Amalula, Amakila, which means don't steal, don't lie, don't be lazy, a motto that maintains the harmony and community spirit of this unique society. Number 5. Amantani Islands. Another must-see on the Titicaca Islands is the Amantani. Remember how we talked about Isla del Sol as the largest island in the lake, but on the Bolivian side? Well, on the Peruvian side, it's Amantani, which is more than 9 square kilometers in size. Around 4,000 people live there, distributed in 10 communities where Quechua is the main language, but many also speak Spanish. Located in the heart of the lake, this island is surrounded only by water and the distant Isla del Sol. Thanks to its isolated location, The traditions and customs of the locals remain almost untouched, making it one of the most authentic and sought-after cultural destinations in Titicaca. Tourism has been an important source of income for many families, offering visitors a complete immersion experience. In addition to its natural landscapes and typical houses, the place is home to fascinating archaeological sites. Ancient civilizations, such as the Pucara and Lupaca, created systems of agricultural terraces that were later improved by the Incas. At the top of the two local mountains, the Incas also left ceremonial centers dedicated to Pachamama, who, as we mentioned before, is Mother Earth, and to Pachatata, who is Father Sky. The site's history also brings back memories of colonization. In the 16th century, the area was sold by King Carlos V to Pedro González, and colonizers tried to settle there. But difficult agricultural conditions meant that, after a great drought at the beginning of the 19th century, the land was sold back to the original inhabitants. By the 1950s, they had reclaimed almost the entire area, reaffirming their ancestral traditions and culture. Today, this cultural expression is a fusion of Andean influences and adaptations made after colonization. The traditional clothing imposed by the Spanish is still worn, but has been customized with colors and patterns that represent local identity and beliefs. Mysticism is also present in the ancient temples dedicated to Pachamama and Pachatata, which remain closed throughout the year and are only opened on a special date for celebrations and rituals of gratitude. But if there's one place that can't be left out of any itinerary when it comes to Lake Titicaca, it's obviously the Uros floating islands. Number 6. Uros floating islands. If there's one place that steals the show when it comes to the islands of Titicaca, it's the Uros floating islands. But what really sets this one apart from the others is that they are artificial and handmade. And yes, we're talking about several handmade islands. Yes, as strange as it may sound, the locals themselves built these islands, which float on the waters of the lake, using a plant called totora, which grows there in abundance. Imagine living in a place that literally floats. These islands on the Peruvian side are home to around 1,800 inhabitants, known as the Uros, and their history goes back a long way. It is believed that this civilization is even older than the Incas themselves. In the past, the Uros lived on the shores of the lake, but in order to escape conflict and maintain their independence, they decided to innovate. They built their homes on the water, forming a real floating city. And how did they do it? Well, each island starts with a base made of intertwined totora roots. Then several layers of reeds are piled up to form a surface firm enough to support houses, families, and even boats. To avoid floating away, the islands are anchored to the bottom of the lake with ropes and stakes. And look how curious. They require constant maintenance. Every week, new layers of totora need to be added in the rainy season. In the dry season, the process is monthly. With this care, each island can last around 30 years. Boats made of totora are also a trademark of the Uros. These boats, called balsas, are like a postcard of the lake and are used to transport tourists. Of course, in everyday life, they also have motorized boats. The culture of the Uros is a spectacle in itself, and even with the arrival of tourism, which has become their main source of income and brought a few touches of modernity, the Uros lifestyle remains authentic. To this day, they harvest totora, fish, and live in harmony with the lake, making these islands a unique experience. Number 7. The impact of tourism. In recent years, Lake Titicaca has become an increasingly popular destination. Its islands, culture, and landscapes attract visitors from all over the world, interested in learning about everything from the traditions of the Uros to the communities of Tequil, Amantani, and much more. With this growth, tourism has brought great economic benefits to the local communities, who find in tourism an important source of income to support their families and preserve their traditions. But tourism also presents challenges. The constant movement of visitors affects the routine of residents and requires adaptations on the islands and in the communities, often to meet the expectations of tourists. In some places, authenticity can be somewhat lost, transforming cultural practices into tourist attractions that don't always reflect people's real daily lives. To deal with these challenges, many communities around the lake are investing in sustainable tourism initiatives. The idea is to find a balance where local culture is valued and respected without the traditional way of life being compromised. But as everything changes, perhaps this scenario is also about to undergo transformations. New generations, for example, have different perspectives. Many young people are increasingly connected to the outside world and, in some cases, not everyone wants to follow the lifestyle of their ancestors. The desire for more modern options and new opportunities could gradually bring changes to Titicaca. And so, the challenge of keeping this cultural heritage alive becomes even greater. Number 8. How to get there. If you are planning to explore Lake Titicaca, which we strongly advise, the starting point for most tourists is the city of Puno in Peru. From the port of Puno, there are boat trips that take you directly to the various islands, with options ranging from quick half-day visits to more complete packages, including Amantani, Tequil, and the floating islands of the Uros. The best time to visit the lake is during the dry season, between May and September, when the weather is more stable and the experience more enjoyable. However, it is possible to visit the lake all year round, with the caveat that the rainy season between December and March can affect access to the islands. And finally, remember that respect is essential. When visiting these islands and interacting with the locals, remember that you are entering their home. Always ask permission before photographing or touching any personal objects, and if you can, support the local economy by buying directly from the artisans. This way, as well as taking home a special souvenir, you contribute to the preservation of this rich and unique culture. And so we end our journey around the intriguing floating island and Lake Titicaca. Have you heard of these islands in Peru? Tell us in the comments which one impressed you the most. If you're curious to discover more secrets and places that challenge everything you know, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next videos. To those of you who have watched us so far, thank you very much, and we'll see you on our next adventure in this Bello Mundo.